going to discuss a super misunderstood topic today. And what I hope to get across is something about a disorder of personality that over the last 30, 35 years I've worked a ton with and have really grown to love and appreciate the way they think, the way this type of personality manifest their mischief. And there's a habit in the clinical world even, and in the world of the layperson that this person with this personality disorder can never change or can never repair. And I want to tell you that's a myth. People with this disorder can repair. They can become healthy, whole, empathic human beings. There is training necessary, and the problem is this personality type rarely sees the need to change. And so because they don't see the need to change is often why they don't change. But they can. And with enough love, with enough people around them, not rescuing them in their mischief, they'll get the message that change is inevitable, that change is even mandatory. So if you look through that lens, the narcissistic personality disorder is not a hopeless, helpless disorder. It's something that can be genuinely worked with. It can be a person with this disorder can have a full, fruitful life and have love and have compassion with training. And so to get the ball rolling on this topic, I want to ask the question, can a narcissist, a person with narcissistic personality disorder, have empathy? What do you think? Can they have empathy? If you say no, it's probably because you've experienced life with a narcissist, whether it be at work, in the neighborhood, or in your own family, and it's felt pretty hopeless. It's felt like they just don't empathize. They don't feel what I feel. But I want to tell you that there's a spectrum, and narcissists fall somewhere on the spectrum. They can be the I feel tons of empathy, but it's all self-directed. It's all empathy for me. Or they have this way of pulling the attention to themselves to feed themselves. But they do have the ability to feel empathy. Now, toxic narcissism or malignant narcissism, these are the probably worst case scenarios of toxicity. These are those that are on the spectrum way high on the list, like a 10 on a scale of 10 of narcissistic traits. Malignant narcissists probably are more antisocial personality disordered. And so if you think through the lens of a true malignant narcissist as being a person that is more of an antisocial personality, they lack the ability to empathize. They're the more sociopathic narcissists, the ones that are, they can commit horrific crimes and not feel any sorrow or any deep sense of regret for it. Interesting enough, though, even a malignant narcissist can cry when their pet dies. Their pet dies, their puppy dies, and they can sob. So you think, wow, you can feel some empathy as a malignant narcissist. And turn that around, it's because puppies or kitties, cute little kittens, do not reflect on them. They don't draw from them. They don't draw attention from them as humans do. So let's say I'm a malignant narcissist and I have a puppy. That puppy's not an extension of me. That puppy is my pet. It's my loved one. It's the one that always gives me energy, always feeds me, always comes to me. It doesn't expect anything but food and take it outside from me. So of course the narcissist loves that because all the empathy from the puppy comes to the narcissist. So they cry and deeply cry when that puppy passes on or dies. And so to contrast that, they can have a person in their family die or a child die, or they read a story about a horrific accident and a child dies. It affects most of us. Well, humans are a threat. Humans are a reflection or an extension of the narcissist. And so they don't feel a lot of compassion, or it doesn't matter because that's all just part of being in my midst. People die. And they don't feel a lot of compassion for other humans because other humans draw from a narcissist. They don't just feed like a puppy does. So think through that lens. They have the ability, even malignant narcissists have the ability, but they don't have the ability to empathize with humans. And so we look for these these traits to find out exactly where a person is on the scale of narcissism. So somewhere on the scale, it becomes harder and harder towards the malignant narcissism to change. But from very lightweight, almost non-existent traits of a narcissist to the malignant narcissist, there's change potential all the way across the spectrum. Narcissists lack the capacity at times, and depending on where they're at on that spectrum, they lack the capacity to feel, excuse me, they lack the capacity to feel a deep empathic connection with others because other people's emotions don't move them as much as their own emotions move them. And so they don't connect real well. They don't feel, at least very strongly, your pain. They feel their own personal pain. And so unless your pain is causing them pain, I've experienced a narcissistic man in therapy that was deeply troubled by his wife's diagnoses of a lump that was cancerous. And the concern was, well, if she dies, I'm going to have to go find another wife. I'm going to have to date. I don't want to do that. And so notice that the whole energy of this crisis of potential life-threatening cancer in a spouse meant he might have to go do something and date, or to go do something that he doesn't want to do. It wasn't a, I'm going to miss her deeply. It's, I'm going to have to replace her quickly. And that's the icky truth about narcissistic lack of compassion. And so when you notice this in someone, you know that, okay, so they have the ability to feel it. They can feel it towards puppies. They can even feel it in their personal life when it has to do with you, as long as your pain affects them. So there is an ability there. So it's kind of like if you can ride a two-wheel bike, then you can like ride a mountain bike, and you can ride many different kinds of bikes. But if you've been stuck on the little BMX two-wheel bike, it might be more difficult to learn how to do the gears and everything, but you can learn. And then narcissism and compassion and empathize, horrible analogy, I get it, but it's a little bit like that. They have this ability to, in one fashion, understand and comprehend compassion and empathy. And so our task is literally to teach them how to use that compassion and that empathic energy externally. And so that's the key. The key is to get them into coaching. Now, I would suggest that a person with narcissistic personality, if it's you or if it's a loved one, they won't change in that vacuum of being alone and working it out internally. It goes back to what I think the scientist Hawkins said, that you can't change a problem by looking at the problem with the same mindset that created the problem. And so a narcissist has created a problem because it's largely environmental. It's not biological. They learned how to be narcissistic from their first 6 years of life. And so they have this mindset, and they can't change that mindset using the mindset that's there to change the mindset. They have to get feedback from another person's mindset. So if I'm the coach, I have to be trusted by the narcissist, which is a very difficult concept for a narcissist because they don't trust very easy. But if I can earn their trust, and then I can get them to really listen to my coaching, and if I can get them to really try some things, then I can slowly but surely erode away the narcissistic traits and create empathic traits inside of their soul that will become self-validating and rewarded to the point where it'll be comfortable, and then they'll continue to do that. So it's almost using parts of their narcissistic self to get the reward of not being narcissistic so that they can function as a healthy human being in relationships. And it does work. The hard part is it takes a long time to earn their trust. You almost have to align and then teach, align and then teach. And as you do that, you can kind of build this alliance towards growth. And I have to let them teach me along the way. I have to let them feel empowered to have some kind of self-importance along the way. And in that process, they'll start to learn how to be empathic and compassionate externally. And they'll start to extend that to other people. They'll start to extend that, and then the reward will be that they'll feel that true love of someone feeling understood by them. And that's validating, which then triggers this, oh, wow, I feel good, which is a key. A narcissist likes to feel good. And so they'll do that more and more, and it'll become habitual, and then it'll become a new way of being because they learned how to be a narcissist. They can unlearn how to be a narcissist. And so now that we know that they can have empathy and they can develop compassion through coaching, what are some worries that you have? So if I'm working with a person with narcissistic personality in a relationship, the toxic kind of dark traits that a narcissist will display is they are genius at using guilt trips or gaslighting. And that's such an overused term these days, gaslighting. In fact, I've found that people will tell you you're gaslighting them if you just disagree with their opinion. So true gaslighting is where you really lead a person to question their sanity because you're telling them how idiotic or how misunderstanding they are of you, or misunderstood you feel by them. So true gaslighting is when I wrecked the car because I drank too much again, and my spouse, I've promised that I wouldn't drink, and so I come inside, and next morning she's out in the garage, she notices the dent in the car, and she thought she smelled alcohol on my breath last night, and so she says, "You've been drinking, and look, you scratched the car, you crashed the car." And I say, "What? That's been there for weeks. You rarely notice anything. You go through life half paying attention. In fact, half the time when we talk, you only listen to half of what I say." And she's, next thing she knows, she's thinking, "Oh, did I miss that?" See, she's literally questioning her reality. Deep down inside, she knows the car wasn't crashed yesterday. She knows she smelled alcohol on my breath. But the narcissist has her thinking that she doesn't listen, that she only hears half and she's forgetful, and she is. And, largely she's forgetful because she's so anxious living with a narcissist that she can't transfer stuff to long-term memory. And so there she is wondering if she's the problem. That's gaslighting. Gaslighting isn't, I think it'll take 2 hours to get to Fillmore, and oh, no, I can get there in an hour and a half. That's not gaslighting. That's just disagreeing on opinions. And so really understand that guilt tripping and true gaslighting is tools that a narcissist will use constantly because they want you to feel bad and to revere them. Like they have this mistaken belief that if they can make you feel bad, they've won a chess move. And so it's like a game with a toxic narcissist. And so the other thing that they'll do is, like, as they're gaslighting you, they'll also be very charming. They'll make you feel like they're your solution. A charming narcissist is someone that knows exactly what buttons to push to make you feel good, but they'll also know what buttons to push to gaslight you to make you feel crazy. And so there's this constant, like, who am I to you with your narcissistic partner? And if you've ever felt this way, there's really two options. The narcissistic person gets extreme coaching and help from a trained professional. And if that's not going to happen, then you need to get out of the relationship. And I'm a marriage counselor. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I believe that couples should remain together and work through the issues, work through their differences under most all circumstances. But if you're constantly being eroded away by narcissistic charm and then guilt and gaslighting, then your self-esteem will die over time, and that's not healthy, and that's not expected of you. And so understand that the narcissist that's very charming, that's also guilting, and they're constantly doing harm because they can't be wrong, and they need you to be wrong. This is something that you can warrant getting out of and getting out of the way of. Another thing a toxic narcissist will use sarcasm, this really biting, sarcastic humor. And so when you're working with narcissistic personality, they'll use humor to get themselves out of the crosshairs of therapy, or out of the crosshairs of your constructive feedback as a spouse or as a loved one. They're super emotionally intelligent, narcissists are. They're not emotionally intelligent enough to feed their own self-esteem, because it's constantly draining. And so that's a bit of a misnomer. How do you be emotionally intelligent and not feed your self-esteem? Well, their emotional intelligence is their ability to tell what you're thinking with relatively clear accuracy. Like, they can see patterns of how you display and show up, and so they know what hurts you, they know what offends you, they know what kind of things make you think about certain like they know if you're super sensitive to racism, if you're talking with a narcissist about a problem you see with the narcissist, they might tell a racist joke or be sarcastic around some topic around racism that offends you, because then you'll start thinking about that. You'll start kind of like maybe chastising the sarcasm. And now we're not talking about what's really going on. I've got you talking about me being a racist, and I can just like laugh you off. And so watch for the emotionally intelligent narcissist that is really good at manipulating you by reading you, by knowing at a pretty deep level what harms you, what hurts you, what offends you, what gets you kind of maybe rattled and I don't know if you've ever experienced this with a person, but they seem to know what buttons to push to get you to look like the out of control one, and they stay calm and serene while you're like acting out. And everybody sees you as the one that's kind of a little bit crazy. You're the one that's kind of a little bit mean or a little bit maybe loud, and they stay calm and serene, and everybody thinks they're the good guy and that you're the out of control spouse. And so that can happen super easy because they do have this emotional intelligence. It's kind of a form of it where they're good at reading your emotional self. Okay, so those things are all things that that narcissists can use to defend themselves against getting the help that they need, also getting along with you as a spouse. And it's super painful for the spouse. And then I guess I want to say that we believe that the narcissistic person in the relationship's in pain. We just don't believe they know it. We believe that they believe their pain is because of you, and it's like a game to them. They thoroughly enjoy acting out their narcissistic traits because it works in their mind. If I'm starting to feel a little bit of shame, I can project that on you. I can, through my ability to be empathic and see you, then I can be sarcastic. I can get it about you. I can get you to feel crazy. And then I feel good again if I'm the narcissist. So if you can follow me on that, it makes no sense to a healthy person. But if, let's say that I have narcissistic personality disorder and I'm toward the malignant side where I just lack this ability to feel compassion for you, but I can understand your emotions so I know how to use them against you. And so I'm feeling a little bit of shame because I broke my word with you, and I know you're going to call me out on it. And so before you get a chance to call me out on it, I make sure I make you feel bad for breaking your word with me on other occasions, or I make sure that I point out your weaknesses so that we're more talking about that. And then when you ask me about me breaking my word, I'll say something like, why does it always have to be about me when I'm telling you what you're doing? Like, you always turn it around, and in literal sense, I've just got ahead of you and turned it on you before you had a chance to even bring it to me. And they're geniuses at it, and they really have made a living or a lifestyle out of deflecting shame and pain, deflecting any kind of guilt, because those feelings are devastating to the narcissist, because deep down they already kind of somewhere in there feel like they're failing and that they have to do this to maintain a sense of equilibrium. And so from a very young age they train in it, and they've watched someone else do it from a very young age. And so what happens with a partner to a narcissist is there's a couple of different types of people that are attracted to narcissistic personalities. These are the true, maybe toxic empaths. And I almost hate to put it that way, but these folks that feel empathy to the level of maybe not being able to shed the feelings that they have for another person's plight. And everyone's met someone, and maybe it's you, that feels such deep empathy for others that they're constantly in pain because they can't put that empathy in a place of your experience is causing me pain, but it is your experience, not my experience. And so I'm seeing it through your eyes and I'm loving you, but I'm also knowing who I am, that I'm different, and that maybe I'm not feeling the same pain as you because so I'm not drained by your pain. Empaths that are toxic or that have a toxic way of showing empathy, and and this is just probably poor training in empathy. It's probably over feeling what's in the room. They get drained by your pain because they actually feel it with you and they can't let go of it. They can't differentiate between your pain and their pain. They haven't learned that skill of like, okay, I know what I was feeling before I came into the room. And so I know this is yours, not mine, but I can see it and I can empathize with you, but I'm not being drained by it so that I can be strong for you still. Now, toxic empathy is when you're drained by it. Toxic empaths are drawn to narcissists because they really believe if they show a narcissist enough empathy, the narcissist will love them. And so they really show up with a lot of love, compassion, and empathy, and they want to help, and they want to love, and they want to kiss, and they want to hold the narcissist. And that kind of toxic empathy drains the empathic person and gives the narcissist food for manipulating. They know how to like keep them in the relationship. They know how to like bond with them through the trauma that the empath is feeling. And then they create these emotional patterns because they've read you and decoded how you function, and they know how to like keep you gaslit enough to feel crazy, charm you enough to feel like they love you, and then they take advantage of whatever you have to give in the relationship. And it becomes like really super painful for the empathic person that doesn't have any boundaries with their empathy. And so I hope that made sense to you. So as you work with a narcissist, if you're a therapist or if you're a person that's in a relationship with one, you have to really remain very clear on what the boundaries of your empathy is. Like you can empathize with the pain the narcissist must feel, but you have to remember that you have to like have a boundary of letting them absorb you and then manipulate you with your empathy. You've got to be able to still say no. You've got to be able to hurt their feelings now and again. You've got to be able to hold true to your boundaries around sexuality and around most everything else. So understand that there's some important parts to that. From a narcissist perspective as well, your show of empathy can look to them like a weakness. Now, a narcissist will probably never tell you that your empathy is a weakness because they want to use it, but they recognize it as. They think, oh, okay, so you feel sad for my childhood. So I'm going to like, whenever you try to make me feel bad, I'm going to say, you remind me of my aunt that made me feel bad when I was a child, and that's where I got abused. And so me saying that to a toxic empath, you're going to like back off and not confront that because you don't want to trigger that poor me in me. And so really they'll see the weakness of your empathy and they'll exploit it. Okay, so when you show empathy to a narcissist and they go into that place of taking advantage of your empathy and like recognizing that as they believe that's a weakness of yours, what'll happen is that they'll turn to some tools to use to try to like make you feel like changing your path in what you're saying to the narcissist. They'll either use rage to scare you, like you're feeling like some sense of empathy, and they'll like show this intense rage and really just push you away because they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to like manipulate them. Or they'll turn on you with shame. They'll shame you for feeling certain things, or they'll tell you that you're shaming them. They'll just show some frustration towards you, and they'll show frustration towards like this topic that you're talking about. I'm trying to think of maybe an example of if a narcissist is confronting you for not being sexual enough or not being kind enough in the marriage. They might then like just rage at you, like you're just like everybody else in my life. You're just like everybody that's ever supposed to love me that just won't. Or they'll turn that rage and make you feel bad for confronting something. If they feel like you don't want to shame them, they'll say that they feel ashamed and they feel like they want to kill themselves because of what you've said about them and what you've said about the intimacy in the relationship. Or they'll just say, well, I'm never good enough for you. They'll do these frustrating statements or these statements of frustration that pull at an empathic person's heartstrings, and it kind of makes it so that you don't want to confront anything that's going wrong in the marriage that might possibly be partly their fault. And so they do experience your feelings, and then because they have this toxic way about them or this fear that you're going to take advantage of them, they hurry and use it to take advantage of you. Next video that we do, we're going to talk about how guilt and remorse affects narcissistic persons. And so this first part is just the empathy part. We're going to go into the guilt, remorse part, and we'll do that tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again.